Hi guys, the time has finally come to talk about the Wallhack's upcoming control glasspad CR-005. I've been always a bit iffy about control glasspads since they usually have one or many things from this list. Either they are not really that controlled, they are sticky on your arm, they have super high static friction and very low dynamic friction in comparison, or something else. But none of these are true on the CR-005. With this pad they have the fantastic new improvements like the curved edges and the thinner total thickness, the new improved silicone base with these small squares acting like weak suction cups, and the box is the rigid plastic pelican case type of thing. The size is also the larger 510x440mm, which is a nice upgrade. Comfort wise, the pad is just so good. The edges disappear under your arm and the thickness is just right. One interesting thing about the CR surface is that for me, I don't actually feel the need to use a sleeve on it, like at all. This might not apply to everyone's skin properties and environments, but this is just one of the least sticky glass surfaces I've used. It's also not a hand oil magnet than the VA surface, so you don't have to constantly keep it clean, although I don't think it's that big of a hindrance on the VA because the surface is very good otherwise. To describe the new CR surface, it is smooth, matte surface that feels very nice under your skin. The properties it has makes it a bit more aggressive on your skates, so you might find your PTFE skates to be eaten away more quickly than on others. So I would recommend you to use skates made from hardened PTFE or the UHMWPE skates. They are slower than pure PTFE for sure, but they do last a lot longer. I've put their silent UHMWPE skates on my MP01S wireless that come as a sample pack with the pad, and the glide is quite controlled, but I adjusted it to it quite quickly. Something like the Magic Eye skate is then quite noticeably faster, but I can see them being eaten away quite quickly. They also include the silent PTFE skates for you to try, and they are quite nice as well. Other things you get with the pad are the clean cloth and some stickers. To find out how much of a control pad this CR-005 actually is, I whipped out my trusty friction meter. To get the most accurate results, I had to measure the frictions from an object that has very straight sides, so I figured why not just use a mouse box with some skates applied to the bottom. This way I could also measure the difference in friction when more weight is applied to the mouse, with also measuring the friction without the mouse inside the box. So for static I measured the peak force when the mouse movement starts, and for dynamic I eyeballed the measurement when the mouse was moving. With this measurement the static number is more accurate and dynamic is less so, but it gives you a good idea about the performance, I think. To make the measurements more interesting, I also took measurements from the control cloth pad that I recently fell in love with, the HSR-SC2 Blue, and also to not only compare Wallhack pads, I tested the Superglide 2 from Pulsar. Based on the measurements, the CR-005 is a really controlled glass pad. It has more friction than even the cloth pad HSR-SE in both dynamic and static friction. However, the differences between static and dynamic on the CR-005 are quite small, making the aiming feel super consistent. There is little to none of that initial tug when you start to move your mouse, making the surface a very easy glasspad surface to adjust to. This same consistency is also found on the VA-005, but the friction of the CR is over double the values on the VA that I measured. From the pads, the SP has the most difference in static and dynamic, but the static is still very low, so it gives that slight more controlled experience than the VA, for example. Then let's dig deeper between the differences of a control glass pad and a control cloth pad. Firstly, the difference between static and dynamic is vastly smaller on the CR than on the HSR-SE, so even though CR has more friction than the control cloth pad in question, it sticks less when starting the mouse movement. With applying more weight to the mouse, the static friction increases quite a bit more on the CR than on the HSR-SE, with the increase on the CR being 21.6% and with the HSR 17.6%. The increase in dynamic is however kinda reversed here, and the increase in friction on the CR being 30.3% and on the HSR-SE 33.3%. This happens because the glass surface has no give, because it's glass, so extra weight increases the static friction more directly. On the softer cloth pad, some of the added weight is absorbed by the surface, so the increase in static friction is smaller. With dynamic friction, the increase on the cloth pad is larger because when the mouse is moving, the scales are plowing through the surface, so to speak. So whether you want a control cloth pad or a control glass pad comes down to how much you value the added comfort of a softer surface on a traditional control pad, whether you want to use a sleeve if the glass surface is sticky on your environment and skin properties. The CR-005 has benefits like being way more durable than standard cloth surface, having less of that sticky feeling when you start to move your mouse, and also it is a very consistent feeling aim-wise. Between the Wallhack pads, they all really deliver what they are meant to do, with their VA being clearly the fastest, the SP surface being plenty fast on dynamic, but having that slightly increased static for less of that ice hockey table feeling, and the CR being a proper control glass pad. Between these, I can really say what is my favorite. Currently I aim best with the CR because I have now adjusted to it, but I'm mostly gonna swap between them based on what I feel like using on the day. The CR really bridges the gap between cloth and glass, and I imagine it can be used really well on tack shooters as well, especially with some slower skates like the UHMWP dots or pills, and it will give you that super consistent glass pad feeling with some real control. But yeah, that is all for this one. Thanks for watching and goodbye.